Fortunately, she was not the only woman on this journey at the time. Other women were awakening to the limitations of their prescribed roles. Margaret Fuller's deep friendships with both women and men and her conversations with women helped her shape her new ideas. Later, she met women in Europe who were living radically different lives from the norms she grew up with. Still, she was the one who articulated this new vision for the relationship between men and women. A new manifestation is at hand, she declared, envisioning a time when women and men would be equal. And she also envisioned male and female as fluid forms. And this is one of the things I think that's so radical about her thinking, and we're just beginning to get it. She wrote, male and female represent two sides of the great radical divide. In fact, they are perpetually passing into one another. Fluid hardens to solid, solid brushes to fluid. There is no wholly masculine man, no purely feminine woman. Pretty radical. Now, she wrote that she enjoyed being a woman, but constantly felt restricted by the role of women. When she spoke or wrote intelligently, she often got complimented as having a masculine love. This still happens to women today. Her goal for herself and for society was to integrate the two, so that women would be free as a nature to grow, as an intellect to discern, as a soul to live freely and unimpeded to unfold such powers as were given her. Now, she was also concerned with women's spiritual development, but she did not separate the spirit from the body or from women's physical and social conditions. And as we have come to realize today, the social is spiritual and the personal is political. Her travels to the Great Lakes in 1843 brought her into contact with the difficulties of frontier life not only for the immigrants, but also with the devastation westward expansion had on indigenous peoples. She was one of the first to write about this. Originally planning to write a travel journal, her book, Summer on the Lakes, became more a critique of life of what was then understood by those on the East Coast as the West. Increasingly, she considered the implications of economics as formative for social values and relationships. Her experiences in New York City and in urban areas of England, Scotland, and Europe awakened a prophetic voice in advocacy for better conditions for working and poor people. She was one of the first holistic thinkers. Just as she understood male and female in fluid relationships, she also understood body and spirit as inseparable. One could not expect people to develop spiritually if their bodies were suffering from deprivation, nor, and this again is a very radical thought, I think, nor could any people develop when some were being denied the basic necessities of life. We're still struggling with that, of course. Her front page columns in the New York Daily Tribune raised the consciousness of the American people about the conditions of a broad range of people, including prisoners, and those living in poverty, both at home and abroad. She became increasingly alarmed with inequities, especially those resulting from industrialization. And she spoke out for the rights of the oppressed in all circumstances. Her goal was to encourage and inspire the establishment of what she understood as true democracy. True democracy would enable every person to develop their gifts and become contributing members of society. And isn't that what we all want? She increasingly sought to shift public attention from the self-reliant individual to the just society, and in so doing she moved Transcendentalism from a personal development movement to a transformational noted that the responsibility of the writer is, quote, to admonish the community and arouse it to nobler energy. I would say this is precisely the goal of ministry and of our prophetic communities of faith. My goal in sharing this story with you about the evolution of Margaret Fuller's life and work is to inspire you to examine your own life. How is it with your soul? Are you doing the work you were meant to do? Are you following your own path in life, or are you stuck in someone else's idea of who you're supposed to be? Margaret Fuller had to fight long and hard to be herself, to carve out her own way of being in the world. It may seem like we have it easier these days. We don't have the same limitations due to gender restrictions, perhaps, but prejudice and oppression still challenge many of us, as do economic circumstances. Margaret Fuller believes society should be directed by, quote, the divine obligation of love and mutual aid between human beings. It is up to us, I believe, to continue to work together to bring that vision into reality. In so doing, her legacy continues through us. As we continue the process of creating greater justice and equity in our world.